3 days. That's all that remains between the world and the opening whistle of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And on June 8, 72 hours before the biggest football tournament ever assembled kicks off in Mexico City, something interesting is happening. The backlash against FIFA and the way it has run this tournament isn't quieting down the way it normally does when a World Cup gets close. It's not getting buried under excitement about the football. It's still very much out in the open. Fan groups across Europe have filed formal legal complaints. Consumer protection organizations have gone to the European Commission. Tens of thousands of supporters in multiple countries have signed petitions. An online boycott movement has been building for months. And just 48 hours ago, FIFA was forced into a humiliating reversal over a stadium policy that fans described as yet another money grab, this time over something as basic as water. Here's the question worth asking today. When the backlash against a World Cup is still this loud 3 days before it starts, what does that actually tell us? Is this simply the noise that always surrounds a mega event before the football takes over? Or is there something genuinely different about the level of frustration that's been building around 2026? Something that goes beyond the usual pre-tournament complaints? Let's get into it, because this story has more layers than most people realize. To understand the scale of what's happened, you need to go back to how the 2026 World Cup was sold to the world, and then compare it to what fans have actually experienced over the last 12 months. When the United States, Canada, and Mexico won the hosting rights, there was genuine excitement. The three-country format, the 48-team expansion, the promise of the biggest, most inclusive tournament in football history, all of it carried real momentum. And when FIFA opened ticket sales, the response was extraordinary. More than 500 million ticket requests were submitted across the various sales phases. 500 million! That's a number that sounds almost impossible, but it's what FIFA itself reported. So the demand was clearly there, the passion was real. But what happened next is where the story changed. When fans actually saw the prices attached to those tickets, the reaction was swift and it was sharp. Group stage tickets ranged from around $180 to $700 depending on the match. Final tickets at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey started at $4,185 at the lowest tier and reached $8,680 for premium seats. To put those numbers in context, the cheapest ticket for the 2022 World Cup final in Qatar cost around $70. The equivalent for 2026 was more than 7 times higher. For a fan following their team from the first group match all the way through to the final via official association channels, the ticket cost alone would run to at least $6,900 before flights, hotels, food, or transport. And that was before dynamic pricing kicked in, which for the first time at a World Cup allowed prices to shift in real time based on demand, the same way airline tickets work. Fans found prices changing between putting a ticket in their basket and getting to the checkout page. Football Supporters Europe, the umbrella body representing organized fan groups across the continent, described the pricing as a monumental betrayal. They called on FIFA to halt sales entirely. And when FIFA didn't engage meaningfully with that call, FSE and the consumer protection group Euroconsumers escalated the situation by filing an 18-page formal complaint with the European Commission in Brussels, accusing FIFA of abusing its monopoly position over ticket sales to impose conditions that would never be acceptable in a competitive market. That's not a social media complaint. That's a legal filing with one of the most powerful regulatory bodies in the world. Here's where things get interesting, because the legal complaint was just one of several pressure points that have been building simultaneously, and taken together, they add up to something unprecedented in World Cup history. The European Parliament raised questions to FIFA's ticketing practices to the Commission. The New York and New Jersey Attorneys General issued formal subpoenas to FIFA over sales at MetLife Stadium, accusing the organization of creating a gauntlet of confusion, fake scarcity, and impossibly high prices. In the Netherlands, a petition urging the national football team to withdraw from the tournament drew more than 174,000 signatures. On social media, a Boycott FIFA World Cup 2026 group accumulated tens of thousands of members, with fans in multiple countries pledging to not even watch on television. And then, just last week, something happened that crystallized all of that frustration into a single story that traveled the world. FIFA announced that fans would not be allowed to bring plastic water bottles into stadiums. For fans attending matches in cities where summer temperatures regularly exceed 35 degrees Celsius, Dallas, Miami, Houston, Los Angeles, that policy landed very badly. Fan groups pointed out that FIFA had previously given assurances that transparent bottles up to 1 liter would be permitted. The reversal felt sudden, poorly communicated, and to many supporters it felt like the latest in a pattern: restrict fan access to something basic, and then let them buy it inside at venue prices. The criticism was immediate, and it came from every direction. Football Supporters Europe said they had been specifically assured that free water availability would be a priority. The broader reaction was captured in one pointed observation from a fan group. What next? Sunscreen banned and fans forced to buy it in stadiums? FIFA buckled within days. On June 5th, it issued a clarification allowing fans to bring in one soft, sealed plastic bottle of up to 20 ounces. But the damage in terms of trust was already done. And the timing, announced just days before the tournament began, made the reversal look reactive rather than considered. That's only part of the story. Now, this is where things change, because when you look at how this backlash compares to what happened at previous World Cups, something significant stands out. Fan frustration is not new to football's biggest tournament. In 2022, Qatar drew enormous criticism over human rights concerns, the treatment of migrant workers, and restrictions around alcohol and LGBTQ+ visibility. In 2018, Russia faced a tense geopolitical backdrop before its tournament began. Before 2014 in Brazil, there were large-scale street protests in the country about the cost of hosting and the diversion of public funds. But in almost every one of those cases, the controversy existed alongside the excitement. Fans debated the issues, but when the matches started, the football absorbed most of the attention. The two things coexisted. What makes 2026 different is the directness of the grievance. This isn't primarily a debate about geopolitics or human rights, though those conversations exist too. This is fans being directly, financially, and practically affected by FIFA's own decisions. The ticket prices hit their wallets. The visa system affected their ability to travel. The water bottle policy affected their match-day safety. The dynamic pricing changed between their clicking and their checkout page. Football Supporters Europe described the dynamic pricing model as turning fans' loyalty into a bidding war. Their formal complaint to the European Commission accused FIFA of deploying pressure selling tactics, opaque pricing, non-transparent dynamic pricing, bait advertising, claiming tickets started at $60 when that level was practically unavailable, and unfair conditions in the secondary resale market. 6 specific categories of alleged abuse, all in one 18-page document filed 3 months before kickoff. That's a document that won't disappear just because the matches have started. Think about what this means for the fans who are actually in the stadiums. For the supporters who saved for years, navigated the visa system, booked flights months in advance, and paid more for their tickets than they've ever paid for a sporting event. The expectation is that the experience has to justify all of that. For them, the hope is that when they're standing in a packed stadium watching their country play in a World Cup knockout match, none of the pre-tournament friction will matter. The roar of the crowd, the tension of the football, the emotion of being part of something that happens only every 4 years, that's what they came for, and that's genuinely possible. The football this tournament will produce is going to be extraordinary. 48 of the best national sides in the world, competing across 38 days in some of the most impressive venues on the planet. But for the fans who are not in the stadiums, the supporters from Brazil, Nigeria, and dozens of other countries whose visa situations made the trip impossible, the young supporters from European fan clubs who were priced out despite following their teams for years, the loyal attendees who were told the $60 supporter entry tier existed and then found practically no tickets at that level in general sale, for those fans, the experience of 2026 is a very different one. And that gap between what FIFA promised and what fans actually received is the core of the backlash that's still running 3 days before the tournament opens. So where does this go from here? What can FIFA do, and what are the realistic outcomes from this point? The most straightforward path forward is the one that always happens at a World Cup. The football takes over. The matches deliver moments of genuine brilliance. The stadiums that do fill up generate atmosphere that gets broadcast around the world. The upsets, the goals, the emotion, all of it creates a narrative that becomes the dominant story of the summer. And by the time the final is played on July 19th, the backlash that exists right now is remembered as pre-tournament noise, rather than the defining story of 2026. That outcome is absolutely possible. It's even likely in terms of the football itself. But the legal dimensions of this story don't resolve just because the tournament is underway. The European Commission complaint is ongoing. The New York and New Jersey Attorney General investigation into MetLife Stadium ticketing is ongoing. Any formal finding by either body, even a year from now, has implications for how FIFA structures ticket sales at future tournaments, including 2030 and beyond. The worst realistic scenario isn't that 2026 fails, it's that 2026 produces extraordinary football that gets remembered alongside a legacy question. Was the system that delivered it fair to the people who were supposed to be at the center of it? FIFA has an opportunity to shift that narrative. Meaningful engagement with fan groups, transparent responses to legal complaints, and a genuine commitment to structural review before future tournaments would all matter. What it does in that space, not during the next 3 days, but over the next several months, will shape what 2026 ultimately means. So here's where things stand on June 8, 2026, 72 hours from kickoff. The backlash around this World Cup is real, documented, and still very much active. Ticket pricing described as extortionate by fan groups and confirmed in formal legal complaints. A water bottle policy that had to be reversed just days before the tournament started. Boycott movements with 6-figure petition signatures. Visa barriers that kept passionate football communities from making the journey. And legal investigations running in parallel with the tournament itself. None of this stops the football from being spectacular. It won't. But it does mean that 2026 is going to be remembered as the World Cup where FIFA's relationship with its own fans came under more documented, more organized, and more legally significant pressure than at any tournament in recent memory. That's a conversation that's not going to stop at the final whistle. What do you think? Has the backlash changed how you feel about watching this tournament? Or do you think the football will fix everything once it gets going? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to hear where you stand on this. If this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what's been building around 2026, hit the like button. It makes a real difference for this channel. And if you want every major FIFA 2026 story covered as it develops, from the group stage right through to the final, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. We're here for all of it. This story is still developing, and as always, football never stays quiet for long. See you in the next one.